Have you ever really stopped to think about how we went from a life of constant movement, always chasing our next meal, to settling down and actually growing it ourselves? This incredible shift from hunting to harvesting, well, it's one of the biggest transformations in all of human history. It's the story of how we all became farmers. We take travel so for granted today. We just hop on a train or a bus without a second thought, right? But what about the earliest people? This quote really gets to the heart of it. For our ancestors, travel wasn't a choice. Not for a vacation. No, it was the very core of their survival. So this brings us to the big question we're tackling today. How on earth did humanity make that monumental leap? What was the secret sauce that took us from being nomadic hunter-gatherers to becoming the world's very first farmers and herders? Okay, let's dive in and break it down. To really understand this huge change, we first have to get a picture of what life was like before. And get this, for a staggering 99% of human history, we were hunter-gatherers. Life was really defined by one thing: movement. Just a constant, relentless search for food. Now, this constant moving around wasn't just random wandering. Oh no, it was a super complex strategy for survival. See, they had to stay on the move for a few key reasons. For one, if you stay in one spot too long, you run out of food. Simple as that. Plus, the animals they hunted were always migrating. And of course, different plants and fruits were ripe in different seasons in different places. And the big one, they always had to find water. Life was kind of like this carefully choreographed dance with nature. So how do we even know any of this? I mean, it was so long ago. Well, we know from the things they left behind, like these amazing stone tools. And these weren't just simple rocks. They were basically the Swiss Army knives of the Stone Age. People used them for everything: cutting meat, scraping animal hides, making weapons, you name it. They were the absolute essential toolkit for staying alive. For millions of years, this was just the way of life. But then, something massive happened. And I'm not talking about a new invention or a discovery. I mean a change to the entire planet. The world itself started to transform. To really wrap your head around the amount of time we're talking about, think about this. The Paleolithic or the Old Stone Age. That's basically all of human history, 99% of it. Our big turning point happens in this little sliver of time called the Mesolithic, or Middle Stone Age, which kicked off around 12,000 years ago. This is when the world starts to change, and it paves the way for the Neolithic Revolution. So the crucial change was the climate. The last big ice age was finally ending. As the whole planet started to warm up, these enormous glaciers melted back, and in their place, huge new grasslands started to pop up everywhere. This led to a boom in edible grasses, things like wild wheat and barley, and also a boom in the animals that ate them, like wild sheep and goats. The entire global menu was getting a makeover. This brand new, warmer world created this incredible opportunity. People started to interact with plants and animals in a totally new way. But here's something that's absolutely vital to understand. This wasn't a sudden light bulb moment. The agricultural revolution was actually a very, very slow burn. The key idea driving this whole shift is a process called domestication. Now, this wasn't just about taming an animal or planting a few seeds. No, it was about actively selecting for certain traits. Generation after generation, people chose the most useful plants and the calmest animals. And by doing that, they slowly started reshaping them from their wild ancestors. When it comes to plants, you can kind of imagine how it happened. First, it was just about observation. People are smart. They noticed where the good plants grew and how new ones sprouted from fallen seeds. The next logical step? Protection. Hey, let's keep the birds and animals away from this patch. And then came the final game-changing step: selection. They started saving seeds from only the best plants, the ones with the biggest grains, and planting those on purpose. And the results of all this selecting were dramatic. I mean, wild grains, they were small, and their stalks were super brittle, which made them a real pain to harvest. But domesticated grains, they got bigger with stronger stalks. Same deal with animals. Wild animals had huge teeth and horns for self-defense. But people chose the gentler animals to breed, and over time, their descendants became way more tame, with smaller teeth and horns. And the proof is right there in the archaeological record. It's so cool. Just look at these two sets of teeth. Can you guess which ones belonged to a wild pig? Yeah, the massive ones, of course. The smaller set is from a domesticated pig, and we see the exact same thing with grains. Humans were actively and literally redesigning nature. So, who were these original domesticates? Well, the evidence we have suggests that the very first animal to be tamed was the wild ancestor of the dog. The first crops people started growing were those grasses, like wheat and barley, and the first livestock they started herding were sheep and goats. These guys formed the very foundation of this new agricultural world.
But this brings up a really fascinating question, one that the source material itself wants us to think about. Out of all the animals in the entire world, why was the dog first? What made that specific partnership between humans and dogs so special, so early on in our history? It's definitely something to think about.
This gradual shift had consequences that would just ripple through all of human history. See, it wasn't just about food anymore, it was about creating a completely new way of life. So let's circle back to that key date one more time, 12,000 years ago. This is when it all starts. It's a slow, quiet revolution that's happening independently in different places around the world, but it was laying the groundwork for absolutely everything that would follow, for villages, for cities, and yep, eventually for entire civilizations. And this all led to the ultimate outcome of the farming revolution. People didn't have to follow their food around anymore. For the very first time in history, they could stay in one place. They could store extra grain for food later, and they could build permanent homes. This wasn't just a new food strategy, it was the birth of the neighborhood. It was a total reimagining of what community could be. This whole shift to farming was truly world-changing. It gave us a stable food supply and the ability to build communities. But we're left with one final and really crucial question. What new problems did staying in one place create? Well, that is a story for another time.